You could be literally anywhere, but you chose to be here tonight, so thank you on a Thursday night. My common name is Nick Dalton. I'm one of the co-directors of the Hanna Institute, and this event is part of many things we do as the community-facing arm of Hanna Boys Center. So we're 3 years old. We are 100% external. We do not only trainings and trauma-informed care and resilience, but we also do events like today and many, many other things. Tonight's event is really special. Rhythmic Minds has been working with our boys for about 6 months now, I guess. Yeah, doing a program, and so we talked about this a long time ago about how do we present a night of their work and make it experiential, but also reframe hip-hop. If you mind the pun, hip-hop gets a bad rap, right? Rap is not hip-hop, hip-hop is not rap, but sometimes they meet in the middle and they have a love child and it's called art, and we move and do some social justice. It's great, because the beginning of hip-hop came out of the Bronx with the peace treaties of the gangs in the early 70s. Because they wanted to reclaim the narrative from the police department, the government, and the media outlets that were using fear and vanity to pit them against each other. Does that sound familiar? Maybe? Yeah, it's an old tool. And so the Ghetto Brothers declared peace and got the gangs to meet together, and they started having block parties on a monthly basis. The Puerto Rican brothers brought the Japanese sisters, who brought the black brothers, and they just literally started having block parties and throwing down music. And out of that came art, these awesome visual art. Basquiat, probably the most infamous hip-hop visual artist. And it was all based on peace, love, and unity. But at the core of it is self-transformation, which is really like letting your voice be heard, telling your story, using music to resync the rhythm of your heart. That's where Rhythmic Minds really comes in. And Gil Scott-Heron, to quote him, "The revolution will not be televised because it is an internal revolution that is not Instagrammable. And it is a process." So I want to thank you for being here tonight. I hope you're ready to get weird. There are snacks in the back. We are not going to be held to colonial time. We will go over a little bit, probably just because we started a little late. And that being said, I want to close with this, and I'm sorry, I didn't do this on the front end. I have to acknowledge where we are. We're currently in the middle of the Sonoma Creek watershed, which gives life to everything here in the valley. We are also on unceded occupied territory that once belonged to multiple tribes: the Miwok, the Winton, the Wapo, and the Pomo people. That's right. And what they used to do, the Miwok lived in the south, the Wapo lived in the north, named after Guapo, because they were brave and so maybe so badass that they actually stopped the mission movement. But here in the Springs, what we think happened based on an archaeological dig at the Madrona State's bachelorette party pad that opened about 3 years ago, we think that they used to come down, sit in the Springs, heal, and share their art and wisdom, and then the Winton, Wapo, Miwok, and Pomo would then go back. So by gathering tonight and doing what we're about to do with our brothers behind me, we are actually reclaiming the sovereign use of this land and helping heal the trauma that is inherently here from the genocide and all the other stuff that happened for hundreds of years. So thank you for gathering and coming tonight. And with no further ado, Rhythmic Minds.
Thank you for that intro, Nick. Appreciate it. That was powerful.
Definitely.
Hi, how are y'all doing tonight? Cool. It's good to see you all. Thanks for coming out. So my name is Jonah Scott.
My name is Max Kline.
And we are Rhythmic Mind, a nonprofit hip-hop therapy organization.
We offer culturally responsive avenues for teens and young adults to engage in their own empowerment through hip-hop, as well as help design and inform their own modes of intervention in order to heal and transform themselves and their respective communities and unfold their highest potential.
And yeah, we are both incredibly passionate about the work we do.
Yes, sir.
We really love the work we do and are constantly amazed, excuse me, at the impact it has on the youth that we work with. And so far, we've been blessed to do our programs, to do this work. Spots in Berkeley, all throughout Oakland, Vallejo, and even here in Sonoma County at Hanna.
Yep. Next slide, please, sir.
So before we really get into kind of the meat of the presentation tonight, we want to just get some energy moving, get some juices flowing, engage in a little rhythmic regulation, which is something you'll hear us continue to talk about throughout the night. But so along those lines, we're going to do a little warm-up exercise right now. But to start, who here has ever been to a hip-hop show?
Hands.
Okay,
oh, that's
hella
okay.
people. Nice.
Good
cool.
to know. Good to know.
So for those of you that have, you probably have experienced something similar to what we're about to do. For those of you that haven't, this is kind of a call and response exercise. It's a pretty deeply rooted tradition in hip hop performance. So Max is going to kind of break down what we're about to do.
Yes, so we're going to split this room in half. So you, sir, in the white button-up will be the line. I feel like that's about half. Although, I don't know, it's a little heavy.
Is he your side or my side?
You're lucky. Oh, no, you got to go over here, man. Yeah, well, you're going to be the line. Everyone on this side.
Are you trying to plant your side? That's what you're doing.
We are going to say the word rhythmic. All right?
And then over here, so it's right here. So then you're on this side then, okay? Cool. Like that. All right, so we're going to say mind. They're going to say rhythmic. We're going to say mind. We're going to be so much louder than they're going to be.
No, definitely
so much
not.
louder?
Definitely not.
Yeah,
so again,
absolutely.
this is kind of like call and response. We're going to go back and forth a few times. And usually in our work with youth, we don't try to like encourage too much competition or competitiveness. But in this one area, we do. So we're going to decimate this side, all right?
Vikings
as loud
of
as
volume.
we possibly can. We're rhythmic, mind, rhythmic. All right? You guys ready? The count of 3. 3, 2, 1. Rhythmic.
Mind.
Rhythmic.
Mind.
Rhythmic.
Mind.
Rhythmic.
Mind.
Rhythmic.
Mind.
Rhythmic.
Mind.
Bro, it's done. We got you.
Yeah, I got to admit, I think they were a little bit louder. As much as that hurts my heart, I have to be honest. Yeah. Anyway, just notice.
Maybe next time.
Notice how you feel after just that short little engagement. We're going to keep coming back to that again, rhythmic regulation, and just asking you to kind of check in with yourself and just notice how you feel
Yes.
at different points throughout the
That will be
presentation.
a core theme, rhythmic regulation. So really just pay attention, even the subtle differences of how you feel now before you did that, and we'll continue to remind you. Pay attention to how you feel throughout
For
this
sure.
whole presentation.
Next slide, please. So we want to just kind of jump off with a little bit of background about who we are in terms of how we came to this work. For me, my engagement with hip hop as a form of artistic expression started at a very, very young age. Growing up in the Bay Area in Berkeley, it was just kind of around, and it was something that immediately attracted me and I gravitated towards like immediately. In terms of rapping, there was something about the highly rhythmic use of rhymed word that just spoke to something really deep within me, incredibly compelling, and I was again immediately drawn to it. Both I enjoyed listening to it, but it was also something I really felt compelled to try to do. So I started writing raps when I was about 9 years old. It was a few years after that I got into making beats because I wanted music to be able to do the raps too. And then that kind of became its whole own wormhole, and I got way deep into that world. And both of those are things that I've kept with me, beat making and rhyming for the decades since then. And in many ways, my passion's only grown for them. And as I look back on my engagement with these forms of expression, I really see how healing and therapeutic and even, in a sense, spiritual they were for me. And that's really what they meant to me in my life. I don't know that I always was aware of it in the moment, in my teens and stuff like that. It was kind of just something to do. But looking back, I could really see very, very clearly how healing they were for me. One time that really stands out in that context is when my father passed in my early 20s, and it was just the most natural thing to turn to writing raps and making beats more than anything else as a way to kind of process and compost the grief and all the challenging emotions that come with the death of a close loved one. So that's really at the core of my relationship to this form of artistic expression and this cultural expression. So fast forward a number of years later, that was in 2000 when my father passed. So fast forward to about 2009 or so, excuse me. And I had graduated from UC Berkeley, undergraduate with a degree in peace and conflict studies, but I wasn't really putting it to any use. I was kind of just treading water in a sense, working to get by. But I had this growing sense inside me that there was just something more out there. There was something that I was literally felt like I was being called towards. I really did not know at all what that was. It was just kind of a visceral felt sense of there's more that I need to be offering the world. And so I started to do a kind of process of self-inventory to explore what this might be. And through that process, it looked like a path kind of opened up towards pursuing a degree in counseling psychology and becoming a therapist of sorts, which was absolutely not anything I'd ever thought about wanting to do. I never in my life was like, I'm going to be a therapist when I grow up. Like, and it was kind of the opposite of like, do I really want to do that? But that was what seemed to be the path. So I started walking on it, and that led me to enroll in the holistic counseling program at JFK, which is where I met Max. That was our kind of point of connection, and he'll definitely tell his own story, but was on a parallel track. And the first year of the program was a little touch and go. I definitely wasn't sure. I was kind of testing the waters, and there was a lot of the time where I was like, I don't know if I'm really into this. I thought about quitting like every other week. And then about halfway through the program, I was in a class, and I was doing a project on creativity as a therapeutic medium. And through the research for that project, I came across people who were using hip hop specifically as a therapeutic intervention with youth, doing hip hop therapy. And that was not something I'd ever heard about before. And at that moment, it was just a light bulb went on. It was a real aha moment. And yeah, I just felt like, wow, okay, this is something that can tie together so many pieces of my life, who I am. Hip hop, obviously, kind of an innate drive just to be of service. My family has a lot of history in social justice, for lack of a better term, and a lot of those kinds of values were instilled in me. And so being able to start to actualize on some of those, and it just wove all that together in a way that I could show up authentically to really be of service to the world. And I knew from that moment on that this would be my life's work, and I would be on this path pretty much from there on out. So yeah, so since then, graduated from JFK, got my master's. Worked as a mental health clinician primarily in Oakland at different high schools there, working with quote unquote at-risk, or as we call them, at-promise youth. And then, yeah, also managed a few programs there. And all that while, Max and I have been building this curriculum that is now Rhythmic Mind.
And for myself, I also discovered hip hop at an extremely young age. I was about 11 or 12 years old when I first encountered it. And from the moment I discovered it, I just completely fell in love with it. Everything about it, all four elements of the culture, from the breakdancing to the graffiti to the DJing to the MCing, like everything about it, I was just completely fascinated by like the level of and the depth of skill that went into each of these crafts, each of these artistic forms of expression was just mind-blowing. The level of mastery and also just like, it felt like I was discovering a secret subculture that had like a universal language and had a lot of truth and wisdom, and it really spoke to me on a really deep level. And, you know, I also felt like I kind of belonged for the first time in my life when I discovered hip hop. It was like I found a place that I belonged, and I kind of felt like I found home. There was something really familiar about it to me. And growing up mixed race, I never really felt like I belonged. I always felt like I didn't really know my place in the world. I didn't quite know exactly where I fit in. And I was exposed to a lot of different things and a lot of different paths, a lot of people around me that were going down certain paths that I knew I didn't want to go down. But hip hop was really like a guiding light on my path that really helped me kind of move towards the direction that I kind of knew was best for my soul. And it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me, gave me a lot of insight into myself. It taught me things like knowledge of self and how to tap into my infinite potential as a creator. And also gave me a voice, gave me a way to really speak my truth and speak truth to power, which is always something that I was really passionate about, really as long as I can remember, even before I discovered hip hop. I was always kind of into that idea of speaking truth to power and poetry. And yeah, so I started freestyling when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and then I started writing rhymes and more seriously really writing and recording songs and performing when I was about 15 or 16. And all of that gave me a lot of confidence. You know, I got a lot of positive social feedback from my friends, my peers, my community. I felt really connected, and I felt valued. I felt like I mattered. I felt like I had significance. And it also really allowed me to develop my creativity and develop a skill on a really deep level and excel at my craft and gain a sense of mastery, which was really a powerful experience. Fast forward to my early 20s, I moved out to the Bay Area to pursue my music and study sound arts at Expression College for Digital Arts. And I chose to move to the Bay because it was kind of the mecca for a lot of the underground hip-hop artists I grew up listening to. And I wanted to study sound arts so that I could learn how to engineer and record and produce music so that I could know the technical side as well as the creative and produce and record my own music. And during this time, I became very active in the underground Bay Area hip-hop scene. I actually made a lot of music, like on a daily basis, rocked a lot of shows, opened up for some fairly big names in the underground scene, and even released an EP, which was pretty well received. And then in the late 2000s, around 2007, I started working at an organization called The Beat Within, leading poetry and creative writing workshops in juvenile halls. And this was really amazing, very, very powerful work. And because I had always been so in love with hip hop, it was always like my first love and passion, naturally I started incorporating elements of hip hop into these workshops, because it was just poetry and creative writing. But I brought the hip hop in. I started doing freestyle sessions with the kids, and I even did a battle once. That was not a good idea. I learned from that. but yeah, freestyle sessions, I would spit verses for them, and I had some skills, so they actually really respected that. I actually earned a lot. I earned their respect by having that skill and having that common ground, that universal language of hip hop to connect with them through. And I was able to build some very strong relationships with these kids and earn their trust. And that's a really big part of why. And doing that work, I just felt like I really was fulfilling my purpose on the planet. For the first time in my life, I was like, wow, this is really amazing. I'm like meant to do this. And that's what led me to go to JFK, because I realized I wanted to help this population as much as I possibly could. I wanted to learn how I could do that. And I always kind of had some vision, some idea of combining hip hop and some form of healing or psychology. I had no idea what that would look like yet, but that was kind of the idea. And then at grad school, I met Jonah, and we had very similar visions. And then we began developing our curriculum around 2012. And after that, we actually both wrote our master's thesis on hip-hop therapy. And I went on to get my master's degree in psychology. And then I worked for many years as a mental health clinician, working with at-risk youth at several different nonprofits and schools throughout the Bay Area. And some of the work I did there included leading hip-hop therapy groups and workshops. All the while, we were continuing to refine our curriculum and our model. And the first group we actually did was in 2014 at a continuation high school in West Oakland. And that's really when we, when the rubber met the road, so to speak, and we really saw the impact and the power that this work could have really put on the ground, and how amazing the transformations that would come out of it were. And now I'm actually soon to be a licensed MFT, marriage family therapist. I'm currently studying for my licensure exam right now. I'll be taking that in about a month, so that's pretty exciting. And yeah, we've been blessed to go on to do our groups and workshops at across Alameda and Sonoma County, and including here at the Hanna Boys Center in the fall. So that's, yeah.
Next slide, please. So you might kind of wonder, like, hip-hop therapy, why hip-hop in therapy? Well, really at its core, hip-hop has always been therapeutic in its essence. You could even say that hip-hop really was a direct form of therapy in its true origins and essence. So yeah, let's go back to the origins of this. As Nick said, Bronx, in particular the South Bronx in the 70s, is really where these kind of constellation of art forms came about and started to, cohesivate, word I just made up, into the culture known as hip hop. And these were, it was primarily Black and Afro-Latino youth. And when I say youth, by and large youth, we're looking at teenagers, some in their early 20s, but these were really young people. And under the brunt of incredible challenge and difficulty, facing systemic racism, oppression, marginalization, still are, but definitely at that time as well. And all the impact that has on many levels, micro and macro. And just the physical environment they were in, buildings being burnt down constantly for insurance purposes, just crumbling infrastructure, really kind of a wasteland. Tons of poverty, gangs, very violent area. And these young people reached inside of themselves and brought forth, literally manifested, a means of establishing value, purpose, passion. All of these things people go to psychotherapy for, they didn't have the resource of psychotherapy. So they miraculously reached inside of themselves and literally brought forth their own incredibly powerful form of therapy. So that's kind of at the core of why we have hip-hop therapy.
Yes, and additionally, just the whole process of, as he said, reaching in within yourself, and that resourcefulness that takes, like looking around, you're in abject poverty and dire straits, and you don't have anything but your internal resources. So you have to look within yourself and manifest something externally from that. And that whole process, that creating something out of nothing is really powerful and really therapeutic in itself, right? It's inherently therapeutic to realize you have that agency and that resourcefulness to be able to create something out of nothing, which has now gone on, by the way, to be like probably the biggest cultural phenomenon on the planet, right? So that's pretty amazing. And not only creating something out of nothing, but creating a way for yourself to have a platform, creating a platform for yourself to have a voice, because they didn't have a voice, to be able to speak truth to power, and really have a voice to be able to speak about their realities, about their circumstances, their adversities, their environments, and use that as a way to speak about it in order to rise above these adversities and circumstances. And not only through the lyricism in hip hop they were doing this, but through every element of hip hop. Like, for instance, in graffiti, really beautifying their surrounding environment with the kind of art that they wanted to see, and kind of reclaiming their neighborhoods back from the corporations, the advertisements, the billboards, and even the breakdancing, like the power in the movements of breakdancing, the resilience, the strength, the confidence, the self-worth that they carry themselves with. All of that is extremely inherently therapeutic. So yeah, next slide, please. So I think you went one. I think there's one more before that. Yeah. And so yeah, for us, it's really important for us to honor that, to really honor the inherent nature, the inherent therapeutic nature of hip hop, and really create a model and a curriculum that expands on that inherent nature with our clinical knowledge and understanding. In other words, it's not like hip hop is over here and the therapy is over here, and we're trying to like, okay, we're gonna like take this and like put it in this to make it therapeutic. No, it's already therapeutic. It's already therapy. What we're doing is we're just unpacking all the therapeutic benefits that it has so that they can be maximized with our clinical knowledge and understanding. And this is what allows us to kind of bridge the two worlds of hip hop and therapy and create a model that is kind of fully integrated so that it connects and lands in an authentic way. Because that's really, really important, is that it connects and lands in an authentic way, and that we're really, with the youth, we're meeting them where they are. We're speaking, their own language, a language that they can relate to, presenting things in a way that they can relate to. They're already using this language. They're already engaged in these things. And that's what really, gives it the deepest impact possible. Now, that being said, it's really important that for anyone in this room, if you're interested in using hip hop as any form of therapeutic intervention, that you have an authentic connection to hip hop music and culture. And if you don't have one, or if you don't have one, that you develop one, that you cultivate that. So, whatever that means in terms of maybe you have to do some research, do a bunch of research, listen to a bunch of the music, go to some shows, find some way to authentically connect with the music and culture. Because if you don't, it's going to come across as forced and corny, and could even be kind of manipulative and be a form of cultural appropriation, which does happen in hip-hop culture. That is something that happens with multinational corporations using it to sell soda and cars and things like that. So it's really important that you have that authentic connection.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that as well. This part is, can't be really emphasized enough. If you do work with youth and you want to begin using this, having some sort of real and true connection to it is absolutely crucial. It doesn't mean you have to be some kind of super rapper or something, but just having something
Definitely
where you
not.
actually have some resonance and some connection to the culture is pretty much mandatory.
Yeah, just find a way to find something that resonates so that when you translate it, it lands as authentic, because they'll see right through it if it doesn't, and it'll backfire. Next slide, please. So with all that being said, what we did when we were designing our curriculum is kind of keeping all those things in mind and trying to honor them as much as possible. So these are kind of the core tenets of our curriculum, which is that it is culturally relevant, strength-based, trauma-informed, and built from evidence-based practices. And it's culturally relevant in the sense that, as I said, it uses a medium that the youth are already familiar and engaged with, meets them where they are, speaks to them in their own language, and is presented in a way that they can really relate to. It's strength-based in the sense that it builds off of the strength that the youth already possess or are interested in developing, and their own innate talents. And it's focused on their strengths rather than their deficits. And then it's trauma-informed in the sense that it meets them where they are, always attuning to reflexively to their own individual experiences, needs, and feelings in any given moment, and kind of also like really tuning into their nervous system and where they're at with that, like how regulated or dysregulated they are, and tuning to that in terms of their needs around that. Always using kind of rhythm. Rhythm is what creates that container of that as a regulatory tool to also be part of that trauma-informed container. Another piece of being trauma-informed that we really hold as really important in the way that we approach this work is not only that it has these kind of pieces around what we're providing directly in terms of how we're attuning to the kids, but also that we're very clear and aware of our own trauma. It's really, to be truly trauma informed means you have to be kind of self-aware of your own triggers and your own trauma, and know how regulated or dysregulated you are, and have the ability to regulate yourself when you're triggered in any kind of way, because that way, the youth can then become regulated because you're regulated. So you're embodying that as being trauma informed. It's not something that's coming from them. It's coming from you, right? So that's another really important piece of being trauma informed. Next slide, please. You.
So some of the therapeutic outcomes that the youth who do our programs experience, up here behind me: increased self-esteem, so just an increased sense of self-worth, self-confidence, and efficacy, a belief in the fact that you can actually affect the world around you. An increased capacity for emotional regulation and expression, increased ability to really identify different emotional states, to be okay with feeling them, to not have them take you over, to be able to regulate them, and to be able to express them in effective and healthy ways. Increased positive thinking and optimism, an increased kind of hope for the future, and an increased belief in your ability to create that future, and an increased resilience. Kind of encapsulates all of these, really just an increased sense of I have the capacity to deal with the challenges that life is presenting me, and even to overcome most, if not all, of those challenges. So we're really upfront that what we do in this capacity as Rhythmic Mind is not psychotherapy. It's not meant to be a replacement for traditional psychotherapy. It does, though, have a lot of therapeutic outcomes, and is built from a lot of clinical kind of underpinnings. But definitely, again, not meant to be psychotherapy. There is another cool kind of side effect of our program, though, in that it really serves to destigmatize psychotherapy and mental health services with a population that, by and large, has a lot of stigma and resistance to psychotherapy. And so something that we've seen is that youth that come through the program down the line, life continues to throw you challenges and whatnot, they're more open to then using psychotherapy as a more long-term resource, somebody they could actually maybe work with over a longer period of time, years. And yeah, as also being psychotherapists ourselves, we're definitely pro psychotherapy.
Most definitely.
Next slide.
And also, just to make a quick distinction around why we're not psychotherapy, because the main distinction is that we don't diagnose, we don't treat disorders directly, we don't we don't do assessments and treatment plans, and so that's essentially the real difference, because there is psychotherapy has a lot of steps, it's regulated, it's under the BBS, there's a lot of different things, and so there's a lot of therapeutic benefits to what we do, but we don't do those things. So I just want to make that distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more kind of a therapeutic workshop in a sense, as opposed to like the directedness of psychotherapy.
Next slide. No, that's it. Oh, my bad. Whoops. So yeah, now we're going to get into a little bit about the kind of clinical and scientific underpinnings of our work, and we're going to talk about rhythm and regulation. And this is kind of the core of everything. I'm going to start a little bit, or talking a little bit about why our name is Rhythmic Mind, because that's not an accident, and there's actually a lot goes into that. We put a lot of thought into that name. Essentially, rhythm, it's been shown in many scientific studies that rhythm is the fundamental underlying mechanism that can basically interrupt the impact of trauma on the brain and the central nervous system. So rhythm, and specifically not just rhythm, but repetitive rhythmic patterns, actually can help one to regain access to the higher parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for your executive functioning, your higher complex thinking, cognitive capacities. And those shut down. When a brain is traumatized, you lose access to those parts of your brain. They literally go offline. And then you live in the fight or flight state. And so rhythm can actually pull you out of the fight or flight state up to the higher parts of your brain. And again, not just rhythm, but repetitive rhythmic patterns. And hip hop is pretty much the epitome of repetitive rhythmic patterns. So that's why our name is Rhythmic Mind, because essentially our mission is to create minds that are rhythmic, that have the capacity to regulate themselves using the power of rhythm and repetitive rhythmic patterns through hip hop, to be able to regain access to the higher parts of their brain and move into an optimal zone of functioning. So that's pretty much the idea behind our name. And we actually have a really cool interview with Dr. Bruce Perry. He's one of the people who's kind of at the frontier of this area of trauma research on our website. So if you go to our website, rhythmicmind.net, there's a really cool interview with him on there where he kind of goes more into depth about this, because it's not one-dimensional, right? Hip-hop has many levels and layers of these repetitive rhythmic patterns, from the beat to the rhymes and words over the beat, to the social rhythms of interaction, to the motor rhythms of the body, many levels. So check out that interview, because he definitely articulates it even better than me. And yeah, it'll be a good thing for you to check out. So again, all of this is about moving out of that fight or flight state, regaining access to the prefrontal cortex so you can be in an optimal zone of functioning.
Yeah, you can imagine as lifelong hip-hop heads, how excited we were when we learned this stuff.
We're like, this is the truth!
Right? Oh, that's why I've been feeling this way this whole time. So this rhythmic regulation piece is really kind of the core guiding principle of it's not the only therapeutic thing in our program, but it is really at the heart of what we do. It runs through every component of our program, and we're going to shortly get into kind of what those components are, but just bear that in mind, that rhythmic regulation piece continues to come back in throughout the whole program. And even on a meta level, it kind of serves as a container for the program as a whole. That rhythmic regulation is sort of what allows the whole program to have a very deep therapeutic impact, because we're constantly regulating everybody in the room's nervous system with rhythm, all the youth and Max and I as well. So that, that's kind of what allows, it's like a carrier wave for everything else. Next slide, please. So using kind of everything that we've gone over thus far, Max and I have created a proprietary custom approach to hip hop therapy. And that approach is built on these three core components: discussion groups, beat making, and lyric writing. And so the rest of the presentation tonight is going to be a somewhat cursory overview of the application of these, as well as some really cool experiential exercises so you guys can actually get some real tastes of how these things work. We also just wanted to be upfront that this is definitely not meant to be a training. If anybody does work with youth, we're in no way hoping to equip you to leave here tonight to then be able to go and implement this stuff. It's definitely just an overview. We do those kind of trainings, though. So if anybody works with youth, or organizations that do work with youth and they might be interested in this, definitely holler at us afterwards. We'll be here. And we would love to carry on that conversation. But tonight is not that. So the three core components. Next slide, please. So the first one is the discussion groups. And these discussion groups are really built around topics of challenge and resilience. Those are essentially the twin pillars of this discussion group component. And the way that this works is at the start of our program, we have all the youth brainstorm areas of challenge that are relevant to themselves, their experience individually, on their community level, whichever. And then each kid picks an area or a topic of challenge. And in the following groups, each kid will bring in a hip hop song that they feel reflects their understanding and experience of that challenge. We listen to that song, and then we use that as a springboard for a very rich discussion around what came up for us listening to that song. Why did that particular kid bring in that song? What is our relationship to that challenge? And so, yeah, it just creates a very interesting way of entering into that kind of discussion. And then once we've gone through all the topics of challenge, we start to unpack a little bit about what resilience is, and we help the youth identify what resilience means to them. And then just like with the challenge topics, they each bring in a hip hop song that they feel reflects their understanding and experience of resilience. And the same process, we use that as a jump off point for some very rich discussions around resilience. Max and I also bring in songs around both the topics of challenge and resilience, so we always have kind of backups to provide other perspectives, as well as we'll have our own topics of challenge as well, so we're very much a part of the group as well as facilitating it. Next slide, please.
And yeah, this entire process is very empowering and strength-based. That's kind of, we're always trying to look for ways to make what we do empowering and strength-based. So, you know, it does that in a lot of ways. So one is the youth, basically essentially what we're trying to do is put the youth in the position of shaping and directing the nature of these discussions, so that not only like as Jonah said, are they selecting the specific areas of challenge that they want to talk about, but also bringing in a hip hop song that best reflects their kind of view of that challenge, their relationship to that challenge. So it's always kind of about what their experience is and what they want to bring in, so that they're the ones kind of in the driver's seat of these discussions. We're facilitating it, but in a sense, they're kind of leading it. And another piece of this is it kind of helps them to access different emotions that they wouldn't necessarily access through, like, you know, normal talk therapy, because music is evocative and it brings a lot of stuff up, but they're selecting what kinds of topics they want to have, not only for themselves, but in a group that they want to talk about, and then, you know, bringing in whatever expresses that for themselves. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is that music provides a buffer, and this is really important. This is also empowering because it provides a way for the youth to kind of choose how vulnerable or not they want to be in this process. So they can, you know, if they want to, they can share on a very deep personal level, but they don't have to. They can also kind of keep it at a distance and just talk about the challenge in kind of a vague, broad sense, in a general way, through just the song itself as kind of a metaphor, or the rapper, or whatever it is about it that they want to kind of say about it. But they can have as much distance as they want from the material, and then again, that's kind of empowering and allows them to be kind of having a lot of a say in terms of their therapeutic experience. And it also helps them to, again, kind of access different emotions through the music that they would not necessarily access through other means. Another way that it is a strength focus is that, as he said, we not only talk about challenges in these groups, but then we also talk about resilience. So even though we're talking about challenges, we're always kind of doing it in the service of focusing on the strength. So it's about honoring the challenge while focusing on the strength. And, you know, we really feel like both of those are equally important. You really have to honor the challenge fully and allow the space that's needed for them to process whatever they want to around the challenge and kind of heal that trauma and move through that experience, while then moving towards resilience and building resilience out of that. And this is what really allows us to use hip-hop as a tool for resilience, not only in these discussion groups, but as something that the youth can then take with them as a resource. So then they can consciously and intentionally use hip-hop music as a tool for resilience in their lives. Next slide, please. So now, enough talking for a little bit. Now we're actually going to have you guys, you know, give you a little taste of this, so you guys get to experience a little bit of what this is like for yourself. So how it's going to work is we are going to play a song for you. Now, this specific song is by an artist named Nipsey Hussle. And I don't know if any of you guys know who he is, but he was tragically murdered last year. It was really, really heartbreaking because he was doing really some amazing, phenomenal work on this planet on even a global scale, and definitely nationally, and very much directly in his own community. If you don't know who he is, please look him up. Look him up, do some research, because your mind will be blown by what this man was doing. and he's an amazing artist, but just all the other things he was doing, it's really amazing. So please look him up. And this song is a really strong example of the kind of song that we would play in our programs with youth. We actually have used this particular song before. It's called Bigger Than Life. It's a really powerful song. And the reason why we chose this song tonight is because it kind of covers both themes of challenge and resilience in one song. And we don't have all the time in the world tonight. We can't play you like one on challenge, one on resilience. So we're kind of combining them so that you get the experience of both. And then afterwards, we're going to have a little discussion around that. So without further ado, Maestro.
So, well, before we play the song,
My bad.
we're just like we do with the youth in the group, we're going to ask you all to listen to this song really, really mindfully and deeply. So listen with your ears, of course, but also listen with your body. Notice what comes up for you physically, any sensations that you notice while you're listening to this song. Listen with your heart. Really notice what your emotional space and capacity is while you're listening to this, what emotional reactions you have to it. Listen with your spirit. Really, really bring all of yourself to this listening experience. Notice what really resonates for you, what you connect with, what stands out for you. And notice what maybe you feel like you can relate to in terms of your own experience. And on some level, you might feel like, wow, this is not really something I can relate to at all. But I think if you give it some really due justice and really let yourself saturate in it, you might really be surprised at how much you do relate to.
And in line with being trauma-informed, some of the content in the song may be triggering. So if for any reason you need to do anything to take care of yourself, please do so. Please feel permission to do whatever you need to do, whether that's taking a few deep breaths, feeling your feet on the floor and grounding yourself, or if you absolutely need to, feel free to get up and leave the room for a second. We hope you don't have to do that, but if you do, please feel the permission to do whatever you need to take care of yourself.
What up? What it do?
Music Corner.
I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight. Welcome all the new marathon members to the experience of a lifetime. I need y'all hands up though. Yeah, look, no, I don't want your love. That's not why I make music. I owe myself, I told myself back then that I would do this. And I always looked so out of reach and just seemed so confusing. Then I found my place in life, a young black man that seems so useless. But I don't want no help, just let me suffer through this. The world would not know Jesus Christ if there was never Judas. This knife that's in my back will be the truth that introduced us. And the distance in between us is the proof of my conclusion. So life is what you make it. I hope you make a movement. Hope your opportunity survives the opportunist. Hoping as you walk across the sand, you see my shoe print and you follow till it change your life, cause it's all evolution. And I hope you find your passion, cause I found mine in this music. But I hope it's not material, cause that's all an illusion. And they all in collusion. This racist institution's double standard, acting like they not the reason why we ruthless. But tonight,
this is my moment.
judge me by my progress. Look at where I started, and look at where I'm standing. Y'all can say it's luck, but I know that it's planning. Shout out to the pain that gave me understanding. Shout out to my gang, turned me to a savage. See, niggas say what they want to, but I go through what you haven't. And it's not ego-driven, it's not me boasting and bragging. This road I chose to go down, hard to slow down when in traffic. In order for me to grow, I had to let go of some habits. And it's easy to say I'm on now, cause you see it and it happened. But before it ever did, had to believe and get it cracking. So I'm gonna take you back then, 32 shots in my Mac 10. With a dream minus the means, my early teens was fucking tragic. And deep inside my mind is buried crimes you can't imagine. That I wrestle with at night, demons I fight, I can't get past it. So no matter how straight your casket, it don't matter if you plastic. We was looking for the lights and all we stumbled across was flashes. But tonight,
This is my moment. But I gotta own it. It's a victory.
if it's meant, then it's gon' be. People love it cause they know that this the real me. The cops hate it, so they hope my homies kill me. But I ain't want the fame, I just wanted y'all to feel me.
So now what we're gonna have you guys do is just amongst yourselves at your tables, we're gonna take about 10 minutes to just discuss a little bit about what that was like to listen to that song, what the experience was like. And as Jonah said, kind of hopefully you were able to listen to it mindfully and just, you know, what was it like in terms of what thoughts and feelings came up for you, what emotions, what did you experience in your body, what maybe did you relate to in your own life or experience or not, just all those different kind of elements. And also, you know, there was some challenge and resilience in there as well. So yeah, just go ahead and discuss amongst your tables for about 10 minutes. And if you guys have any questions or anything, we'll be coming around. All right. Sorry to have to break up these discussions, but the show must go on. So yeah, we have about 5 minutes to unpack a little. So would anybody like to share from their groups? If anyone want to share like something that came up in their discussion that they'd like to share, we'd love to hear anything that anyone would want to share about that came up in your group or that you learned, maybe something you learned or some insight you got. Anything?
Or even just your experience that from listening to the song as well, but just sharing it with the group at large.
Absolutely. That was 10 minutes. That was 10 minutes. Yeah. No one has anything they'd like to share about their experience? No pressure. Not everyone at once. Yeah?
There was a lot of discussion here about the kind of juxtaposition between this like beautiful, the melodic parts of it, and the content sometimes being, you know, very violent and sad and depressing. You know, talking about seeing people being shot as a child, wanting, you know, knowing that the police would rather see your friends kill you, and then this, you know, nice chorus comes in and sounds so good, but you know, so that kind of feeling of it's almost a little shocking, you know, more shocking because it's that combo and powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
But the woman right to your left had her hand up as well. Did you have something to say?
I was going to say, is that if you had put that song on and said, who thinks is hip hop, I would have voted no, that I didn't think it was hip hop.
Okay.
And it dawned on me how little I know about hip hop.
Right.
I think right here.
Somewhat apropos what you were saying, we were talking among other things both about the combination of the lyricism and the melodic and also the beat and that slap, 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 slap. On the one hand, it felt like it really fit with what feels like a very inspirational, aspirational song. And, you know, it's like this always more above, you know, sempre plus ultra, you know, always moving more above. And at the same time, I felt some pressure in it. I mean, it was interesting. It was uplifting, and at the same time, I would say I felt a little anxiety.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't join any particular groups, but I was having a brief conversation around like, well, that doesn't sound like the hip hop my kids were listening to when I was younger. And I was like, there's still some of that, like, you know, like just loud noises and maybe bad words here and there, but you know, there's messages in some of these things, and there's things like you start really thinking about, you know, even how we grew up as kids. Like, you know, there's times where we didn't think we were gonna be able to succeed and do anything, and so be able to have someone out there, you know, putting that message out there, talking about how, yeah, it's not always easy. It's not always gonna be peaches, and you know, you're not always gonna do it exactly the right way. But if you put your mind to it, you're gonna make it happen. And you don't usually sit there and, like, I even kind of closed my eyes for a moment and was listening to music. And you don't do that too often, so it was really cool to have that experience.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Seems like Nick,
Yeah, so I don't know. Hang on to Nico's a sec, please. I was listening to the instrumental as well as the lyrics at the same time, and I think to like thread what a bunch of you said, it felt like waves surging in, like it was peaceful but yet chaotic at the same time. So like we were talking about it came in and then it would go out, so you had a breath to just kind of like digest and let the calm, and then the next one came in. And so it was, the acoustic kind of rhythmic of it was really interesting for me because I didn't really hear a downbeat more than I did just the surge of the acoustic chamber, which was beautiful.
Yeah, I would agree. I think just the way the song is composed is incredibly masterful. It really conveys so many levels of like emotion and the human condition and aspiration, but also that anxiety and then knowing him in the background that he came from and the amount of tension and trauma that he was carrying into all that, but then still kind of transcending that. Yeah, I think it's incredibly well done.
And again, this is why we really want you guys to look him up, because the stuff that was really early in his career. Before he died, he was like making peace between the Bloods and the Crips, like the biggest gangs in Los Angeles, and he grew up as one of the Crips, and then he was like literally in meetings with the police chief about like making peace, and that was just one of the amazing things that he was doing. He was doing some really amazing revolutionary work.
Yeah, there was actually a citywide truce between all the gangs in LA when he was murdered. I'm not sure how long that's held for, but that was the response to his murder.
Yep. Yeah, you had your hand. Oh, yeah. I heard that. I hope. Yeah. The marathon continues.
We got time for one more.
Yeah, I mean, if you really, I mean, it's hard to, if you don't have a trained ear for it, you may not catch some of the lyrics in there, but he was saying some really amazing things. He was talking about structural racism. He was talking about his pain giving him understanding, how if he needed in order to grow, he had to let go of habits. There's some phenomenal lyrics in that song. You know, sometimes our ears, and we hear the sound and we're not accustomed to it, and then we hear like one thing about violence and we might write it off. But you got to look a little deeper.
I hope it's not material, because that's all an illusion.
Right? Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
For real. And it has eerie prophetic tones when you also understand his life and what happened to him as well. He was a very powerful human being, for sure.
For sure. And we do have to move on now. But again, you know, I'm wondering if you guys were able to pick up on those kind of themes of like the challenge and then the resilience, right? There's like both in there.
Spot on.
Absolutely, yeah. That's pretty much exactly on point and pretty much where we're at and we're about to go into. So, very well said.
So again, as we're moving on, pardon? Yeah, definitely. She's a plant, for sure.
She's a plant.
Thank you. We'll get you that after the show. So just kind of take a moment to check in with yourself. Notice how you feel after going through this process.
Absolutely. Continue to take that internal inventory.
Next slide, please.
Attention to how you feel. So now we are going to move on and talk about the next components of our model, which is beat making. And essentially what we have done is we have created a custom curriculum in order to teach kids how to make beats from the ground up, even if they've never made a beat in their entire lives. Some starting off extremely basic and rudimentary to something a little bit more advanced and intricate where they can kind of learn the bells and whistles and get a little crazy with it. And basically we use a program that is it makes the process very accessible regardless of their skill level and their musical aptitude, so that it ensures they really do have the ability to make something that they're truly proud of in a pretty quick amount of time, and that really boosts their confidence and self-esteem, and it makes them feel like they're actually capable of doing something they didn't think they were capable of before. Next slide, please.
So this beat making component is really the most direct application of the rhythmic regulation phenomenon we've been talking about. As I was mentioning, it really runs through the whole program, but this is really the most direct, solidified application of that, involving tactile stimulation. So the actual felt sense of hands tapping on a drum machine, tapping out those rhythms. So you're getting the actual physical contact going into the nervous system in a rhythmic fashion, regulating the nervous system. The somatosensory input, the internal felt sense experience. So the way that actually feels internally, and that rhythm, again, really engaging the nervous system, embodying those rhythmic patterns. The whole thing is really body and movement oriented. You could say it grounds the energy of the program into the body, tapping into the inherent wisdom that's in the body, tapping into a lot of the power of nonverbal expression. So those realms of the human experience that are kind of outside of the bounds of language. Language really only goes so far. So much of what we experience is beyond that capacity. And then even for a lot of the youth we work with, they have a lot of resistance at times to expressing emotion or to allowing themselves to verbally express emotion, especially a lot of the young men we work with really taught that that's not okay, other than anger. So they might not be comfortable expressing emotion or just not have the vocabulary, but now they have another mode that they can emote with. They can use sound, they can use rhythm to have the healthy expression of these different emotional states. And there's also a skill building component. So they're learning something, executing, and then seeing a result, as Max said, pretty much immediately from the way we have the curriculum, and just building these self-esteem feedback loops that build that self-esteem very quickly. A quick example of that, there was a young man who was actually in the group we did in the fall here at Hanna, and after a couple of days learning, kind of getting his feet under him a little bit with the beat making, came in, put on his headphones, and we heard him over in the corner sort of exclaim to himself. He was like, "Oh, I made that? Okay." And you could just see the pride sort of swell across his face. It was beautiful. Next slide, please. Now you topic?
I was just gonna say, those are the moments we live for, right
For
there.
sure, for sure. Now that was really cool to see. So now the third and kind of culminative component, the lyric songwriting component. So we have the youth pair up, and that actually takes place in the beat making part. Once they go through and learn kind of the basics, get some chops, then we have them pair up and compose an original beat as that pair. And then that's gonna be the music they're gonna write these lyrics to and create this song. And so the song is focused around what you could call a positive self-concept. This is a vision they create for themselves in the future, a future most successful, most actualized vision of themselves. And we leave the door wide open for success. That's their definition of what they feel is success. We're not defining that for them at all, but we're just helping them to really see what that might be for themselves. We lead them through a pretty deep visualization process to help them gain clarity around their passions and their purpose and future goals and how they might go about executing to achieve those future goals. And then that visualization process really informs this lyric writing process. And another facet of this whole thing is during the lyric writing process, we work as what you could call rap coaches. So we're helping them with things like phrasing, delivery, how you can take a grouping of words and apply it in different rhythmic patterns depending on the beat and the style with which you want to approach that whole thing. Word choice, different synonyms that might rhyme. So what are you trying to say? Oh, here's another word that means the same thing but actually rhymes with the word before it. So things like that. As well as just helping them unpack a little bit what they're really trying to say and really get to the heart of what it is they're trying to communicate and how they want to communicate that. And that process in and of itself can be incredibly therapeutic because a lot of times for the youth, they're learning a lot through that process because they're not really sure. And so they're peeling back layers for themselves and really starting to understand themselves on a much deeper level. So that just alone can be incredibly rich to see that transformation. Just a quick kind of aside on the piece around different patterns and applying that to the beat. We got some feedback a couple weeks ago from a young man who was in one of our programs, and this blew our minds because it's not something that we had like put into the curriculum intentionally. We didn't ever think of this in the design, but he shared with us that through that process of applying different patterns and being able to try it this way, no, that's not really working. Okay, I'm gonna try it over here. No, okay, that's the one that fits. He experienced a kind of essentially a macro level that he then gained much more ability to become aware of his patterns of behavior, and then to have the capacity to change those patterns of behavior at will and try different ones until he found something that worked better for him. And he told us that through that process, he improved pretty much every important relationship in his life. So it was, mind-blowing to hear.
Yeah, it was really, it was definitely mind-blowing. It was like the way he articulated it, it was almost as if the beat was like a metaphor for life. And kind of like the way that life, whatever life throws at you was kind of like the beat. Okay, well, how am I going to fit into this? How am I going to like lay myself over it or around it or in between it in the pocket? How am I going to be adaptable and flexible to what life throws at me so that I can kind of choose which kind of perspective or angle or lens I want to look at this life situation or approach this from? And that was all kind of from this kind of metaphor of like the patterns of the rhymes over the beat. And that was just crazy because like this is not something that we had previously conceptualized at all. We were not aware of this. So for him, for a youth who went through our program to directly give us this feedback was just really, really amazing. And it was something that we were not at all aware of. And now it's like opened up our minds. And we're like, okay, wow, that's really powerful. So we're going to continue to like unfold and unpack and explore how we can kind of apply that on a deeper level and see where that leads us, because that's pretty mind-blowing. So getting back a little bit deeper into the lyric and songwriting process.
Next slide, please.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you. The entire process is rooted in a specific modality of therapy called narrative therapy. And really what the youth do is it's really centered around exploring and reauthoring one's personal narrative. And your narrative is pretty much the story of who you are and your relationship to yourself, to the world, in whatever social or environmental context that you exist in, etc. And through this process of really exploring their narratives, as Jonah kind of talked about, we go really, really deep into that narrative. Like what was the narrative up to this point? What has created your story up to this point? What was all the traumatic experiences you've been through, the pain, the challenges, everything that you've gone through to create this narrative, which is kind of the way you see yourself in relationship to yourself in the world. And as we unpack all those different layers, kind of getting down into what's at the root of that story and the reason that maybe if that story is holding you back, why is that? And it's really a lot of what you would do in therapy, like in a therapy session, but we're doing that through the process of actually writing a song. And it's through this process that the youth engage in this reauthoring process for their narratives. And really what that ultimately means is that they're really taking ownership of their narratives and reshaping it to be what they want it to be. And always kind of framing it more in an empowering, strength-based, and positive light, right? Because as we talked about, the whole visualization, everything we kind of move through is like, who do you want to be? What's the most successful version of yourself in the future? Where do you see yourself going? How are you going to get there? And how are you going to change your story, take ownership, reauthor it so that it allows you to get there, right? So that's kind of the idea. Next slide, please. And the other part of this is it's combining the challenges and the resilience, which is, again, the two kind of core themes to our model. And essentially kind of the idea is that it's changing their relationship to their challenges, right? So as we talked about earlier, kind of honoring that challenge and, whatever they're going through now, whatever they've overcome in the past, whatever they're trying to overcome or have already overcome, and kind of like looking at their challenges through a different lens, like how how can they allow their challenges to give them strength and wisdom to then help them build resilience to then overcome and rise above those challenges to then be able to reauthor their narrative. So it's really bringing all of that together because they go through that discussion group, everything. All of it goes into this song. And that's why these songs are really, really powerful. And again, it's, really changing their relationship to their past pain and trauma, almost like turning a weakness into a strength. It's kind of like the idea. So, and this is what helps them really to be able to envision and create a positive and successful future for themselves. Next slide, please. So now, next experiential element of this is we're going to actually have you guys do a little visualization for yourself. Now, the process we do with the youth is a lot more in depth. It's a lot longer, a lot more in depth, and obviously these transformations happen over the course of 12 weeks, but we want to give you a little bit of a taste of that. So I'm going to lead you through a little bit of a visualization now. So let's go ahead and get comfortable. Feel your feet on the floor. If you guys feel comfortable, I do encourage you to close your eyes for this. If you're really uncomfortable doing that, you don't have to, but it definitely, to really go through it would be helpful if you close your eyes. Feel your feet on the floor. And when I say that, I mean really feel your feet on the floor and just allow yourself to become a little more present in this moment, kind of let go of whatever thoughts are on the past or the future for now. Kind of move out of your mind into your body a little bit. Notice the weight of your body on the chair. Feel your back up against the chair. Notice where your body is contacting your chair. Notice where your hands are. Feel the sensation of whatever they're resting on. And we're just going to take a few deep breaths. Deep breath in through the nose, all the way to the bottom of your belly. And out through the mouth, very slowly, becoming more and more relaxed with each moment. A couple more times. Deep breath in. Hold it. Slowly out of the mouth. One more time. Deep breath in. All the way into the bottom of the belly. Hold that breath. Slowly out of the mouth. More and more relaxed. Now I want you to imagine you're standing in the middle of a beautiful forest. Now really picture it. Really picture yourself standing there in the middle of the really beautiful forest. It's a beautiful sunny day out. You can see the sun glistening through the leaves and the trees. You can feel a warm breeze. Beautiful temperature, everything is perfect. And off in the distance, you see a log cabin. There's something about this cabin. You see smoke coming from the fireplace. There's something about this cabin that seems familiar. And it should, because this cabin belongs to your future, most actualized self. So I want you to just notice what you hear. What kind of sounds do you hear? What kind of smells are you picking up on? And now I want you to walk to the door of the cabin, knowing that your future, most actualized self is waiting to greet you on the other side. And just notice how you feel as you approach. And as the door opens, and you greet your future, most actualized self, I want you to notice, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? And just pay attention now as you greet your future, most actualized self. Pay attention to how they return your greeting. And take a second now to really take this person in. What do they look like? How are they standing? What is their body language like? What are they wearing? Take in all the details. And as you enter the cabin, I want you to take a look around this dwelling and just see what you notice, what stands out to you. What kind of person lives here? Now I want you and your future most actualized self to go make yourself comfortable. Maybe your future self offers you something to drink. And you're going to settle in now and get really comfortable. Settle in. And I want you to start this conversation with your future most actualized self by asking a couple questions. The first question you're going to ask is, what do I need to pay the most attention to in my life right now? I'll repeat that again. What do I need to pay most attention to right now in my life? And just listen in for the answer. Next question you're going to ask your future most actualized self is, knowing what you know now, what's one piece of advice that you would give me? Knowing what you know now, what's one piece of advice that you would give me? And just really listen closely. Now I want you to take a moment and just ask whatever question comes to you that you feel like you're kind of needing help around right now. Maybe it's something you're going through currently. Maybe there's something that's on your mind. Take a moment to ask that question. Now you're going to ask the golden gem of a question. This is a very important question. It's a very, very important piece of advice. So just listen inside yourself and take a moment now to ask this golden question to your future most actualized self. Listen closely. Now, once you have the answer, I want you to imagine your future self turning to you and thanking you for holding on strong, for not giving up, thanking you for not giving up when you could have. Now I want you to imagine you and your future self standing up. And you're a few feet away from them. Now imagine yourself taking a few steps forward and stepping into your future most actualized self. What does it feel like to be inside this version of yourself, embodying your future most actualized self? What do you feel? What is your body language like? How do you carry yourself? And I want you to imagine looking back over your life, thinking about all of the challenges that you had to overcome to get here. everything you had to go through, all the things that you've accomplished. All of the people that you've helped along the way, all the positive impact that you were able to have on the world and other people around you. Now I want you to imagine walking back out the door of this cabin, back down the path through the forest, and back into this room. And slowly, when you're ready, you can begin slowly coming back to the room and gently opening your eyes, staying connected to that experience. Next slide, please.
First, we have just about 5 minutes to kind of unpack.
Right. Not next slide, please.
We're good where it is, though. Yeah, so we got, again, about 5 minutes if anybody wants to just share a little bit about their experience.
Yeah, we know those visualizations are pretty powerful, so, and it can be pretty personal too, but if anybody, we'd love to hear anything that anyone wants to share about their experience. Sounds like a good piece of insight. That's great to hear.
Yeah, for real.
That's the idea, is that the rhythm deepens it even more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And keeps you regulated and, just enhances it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song as well, for sure.
Yes, it is.
It is
The life, or just life, actually. Anyone else? That's really good to know. Yeah, that's an important piece for us as well, is like, whatever your version of success is, hopefully it involves helping other people. Right. You know?
For sure. And I think the term is that Max had used was most actualized.
Actualized.
And that, you really might be fairly close to that presently. It doesn't necessarily mean that that you're not, or you're not on that path already. A lot of this is just to help gain clarity around those things, and clarity beyond even just like a conscious clarity, but even an embodied clarity. But I would agree that is for me also a measure of true success, is am I being able to connect with other people and to be of service to people, for sure.
And with the youth in our groups, as I said, it's a lot more of an in-depth process that we couldn't go through here tonight as a condensed version, but we have them kind of identify that first. Like, what is success to them? What does that really mean? And of course, because they're younger too, it's like more, this is like years in the future that they're envisioning this, that they've accomplished all the goals that they want to, and they're clear about that before they go into it. So I could see how that could also, tonight, it's a little harder for you guys to to get a grasp of all that. But hopefully that's still, you get a little bit of a feel for that,
I want to pry a little bit and see if anybody got an answer to any of those questions that you might be willing to share.
Right. That's beautiful.
Sounds like
there was a lot of a bounty and abundance, that was presented by your future self. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. Anyone else?
I got answers to all my questions, I was able to really clearly form all of the different images that you gave. And as I maybe the second or third question that you said, ask your fully actualized, realized self, I was like, oh, because the point of this is that we already have all the answers inside of us.
She got it, folks.
It's another plant.
When you said come close to your actualized self and step inside, I felt a significant shift in my energy. It was just because she's already there. I just spent a lot of time hovering above it. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other answers to questions that people want to possibly share? If not, that's all good too.
All right. Well, we're gonna unpack this just a little bit deeper with another experiential exercise, a little writing workshop. And so this is going to be kind of a chance to explore this idea of reauthoring your narrative. Obviously, this is on a very small scale. What we do with the youth we work with is over 12 weeks. This is going to be about 10 minutes of writing. Very different scales we're working with here. But the idea is to try to take some of the wisdom that you potentially received during that visualization process around that most actualized self and unpack a little bit about how you want to move into that narrative and fully embody that narrative of your most actualized self. And I also want to add in here that this isn't meant to point out any deficit, and you might feel like you're really already kind of in that path and on that path, and that can also be unpacked around that narrative. So it's not so much implying that you need to change anything. It's just getting to explore what is that narrative you're telling yourself, and then how do you want to sort of amplify that narrative, or remix it is another way of looking at it, towards that most actualized self. And this can really take any form you want. This can be literal, this can be metaphorical, this can be a poem, this can be a story, this can rhyme, this can not rhyme. Kind of whatever you're feeling compelled to do within this context. It's definitely very open-ended though. So that's why you have paper and pens on your tables. So we're gonna take about 10 minutes to do this. If anybody has any questions or you want some clarification around anything, just shoot a hand up and we can come over and check in with you.
Absolutely. And just to counterbalance what Jonah was saying, I would say that even if you do feel like you're at a place where you are at your most actualized or whatever you want to say, successful, realized version of yourself, I feel like there's always infinite potential more to unfold, and there's more to contribute, and there's more that you can offer still. So this is where we like to challenge each other so we can keep growing. But yeah, I would say, look at that too. Look at that too, because I feel like even if we are perfect as we are, and there's always more, right? So yeah.
All right. Yeah, cool. Hopefully that was an insightful and informative and enjoyable experience. So keep these papers handy. We're going to come back to these in a minute. We're not going to unpack on them right now, but definitely keep them handy because we will be needing them before too long here. Next slide, please. All right, so back to the program with the youth. We've now kind of come to the culmination of the program. We've gone through all the components, the discussion groups, the beat making. They've made original beats. They've then written lyrics to those beats, and they have created original songs. And we then have them record those songs. We have those songs professionally mixed and mastered, so they sound nice, clean, they bump, they have some impact to them. And then we put those on custom-made CDs and custom flash drives, and each youth in the program gets one. It's essentially an album of all the songs that were created in that group, kind of a memento they can take with them. In the therapeutic world, you'd call it a transitional object. It's something that they can take with them that kind of brings back some of those therapeutic qualities and impact that they got over the course of the group. They also get a Rhythmic Mind t-shirt. We do have some for sale.
Yeah, they get some saucy ones too, like the
they
black,
do.
yeah.
They get. Yeah, we go all in for those, as well as like a certificate of completion. So the whole thing really has a kind of feeling of a graduation or even a rite of passage of sorts.
And then the kind of culmination, whenever possible, is we have them perform for their families and communities, because that's a really important tenet of narrative therapy, is that once you've reauthored your narrative, you then share that narrative with your community, and you have that witnessed, and that really solidifies the reauthoring process. That's a really, really important piece, because, you know, it's like you can share it internally and then share it with your group, but then when you share it with your family and community, it's like now it's like, okay, you're stepping into the world with that new story, and you're having that witness, and that really cements it and solidifies it. Yes, sir.
Next slide,
Next
please.
slide, please.
So these are, we could tell you just a couple of stories that really highlight some of the impact of this work. Up here are 2 URLs. So unfortunately, these are for songs for kids that have come through the program. We don't have the time to actually play these songs tonight, but if you want to take a picture, write these down, you can also talk to us afterwards, and we can give them to you directly that way. But these are the links to these couple songs. So the first one by a young man named Overcast is his artist name. He was part of the group that Max talked about, our very first one that we did at Continuation High School in West Oakland, Ralph J. Bunch. Yeah, so he was a student there. Long story short, tons of challenges with anxiety, just very kind of isolated, socially isolated, a lot of feelings of overwhelm. Even his body language tended to be really hunched over and kind of withdrawn and cut off from the world around him. He had some musical experience. He had some experience making beats, actually quite talented in that area, had also written some raps, but had never really created a whole song before. So our group was the first time he actually went through that process. And his transformation over the course of the group was just incredible. Literally, whole body language just changed and started to really show up in like an actual kind of embodied, present way. Became tremendously much more outgoing. His academic performance improved like significantly. We literally had teachers coming up to us saying, I don't know what you guys are doing in there, but this is like a whole new kid in my classroom, the way he's showing up. Again, just with real presence and a truly embodied kind of force to him. The song he made is called Golden Piano. And so he identified music as both his vision of his most actualized self as well as the vehicle he was going to use to get there. And the golden piano was a metaphor for that whole process. And we're super happy to report that now, about 5 years later, he's part of a thriving hip-hop scene in Oakland, one of the more prominent members of that scene. A lot of younger artists really look up to him. Incredibly talented. His skill level has grown through the roof in both rapping and beat making. He just put out his debut album. It's called Try Again. You can find it on Bandcamp if anyone wants to check that out. It's really good. And yeah, so he's definitely embodied that most actualized self that he envisioned for himself. And a crazy experience we had about a month or so ago. I was reading like just a hip hop magazine, and there was a write-up on, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Earl Sweatshirt. He's a fairly internationally known touring rapper. And it, I'm reading about the review of the album, and it mentions, oh yeah, a couple beats were produced by Overcast. I'm like, for real? Yeah, and I checked in with him, and he was like, yeah, that was me. And crazy, because back in the group at Bunch, he talked about Earl Sweatshirt being one of his favorite rappers, and then he went on to work with him. So yeah, it was beautiful to see.
Yeah, that was really, like, for us to find that out was crazy. We were just like, damn, that's really truly like fulfilling this vision that he had of not only reauthoring his narrative, but stepping into that actualized, version of himself for real. So another very powerful example of this work is a young man that went through our program at Vallejo High, and this is an incredible young man. He's been through a lot in his life, a lot of trauma. We can't kind of share that kind of stuff because it's, we respect confidentiality, but he's been through quite a bit. And he made a really, really powerful song in the group called Success Through Failure. And he completely thought of that name for himself, which is pretty awesome because that's kind of like the epitome of what our program is about in a lot of ways. And this song is really powerful. I highly suggest you check this song out. Go to our website. You go to the gallery page on our website. You can listen to these songs. This one's called Success Through Failure. It's really, really powerful. And what was really crazy was after the song was completed and mixed and mastered and he got his copy of it, he actually sent me a text message. And what it said was, I can't stop listening to this song. Every time I do, I love myself 100 times more. And that was just, I can't really express in words how fulfilling and overwhelmed with joy and happiness that made me. That's literally why we do this work. And yeah, it was just overwhelming. And now we've actually gone on to hire this young man, and he now works with our organization. And that's another part of our model that's really important to us, is whenever possible. We can't do this with every kid that comes through our program because we do not have that capacity, but there are times when there are certain promising individuals, and if they show a lot of interest and aptitude, then when we try to provide that economic opportunity for them to work for the organization and assist us with the programs, and eventually, if possible, if they're interested in it, grow with the organization and even become leaders of the organization. That's really our vision. So to see that start to become fulfilled with this young man is really, it's really amazing. And he's going to be helping us with the next programs that we're doing. So we're really excited about that. We try to really, pay our staff artists really, really well as well. He just turned 18. He's going to be getting paid $30 an hour. So, we're proud of that. We're proud of that part of our model, and that's a whole nother level of impact that part of our model can have on a systemic level, really, providing these economic opportunities. Another last little piece of this was when we did hire him, and we told him, we were hiring him, and we put his bio up on our website and everything. He showed the bio to his mom, and he said that she just broke down in tears and was just so happy, and shared it with the whole family, and the whole family was telling them how proud they were of him. And this, he's told us this several times, so this has really impacted him on a really, really deep level. So that's another kind of example of how far that part of the work can go as well. Next slide, please. All right, so that pretty much sums up our model. As Jonah said, that's kind of what the youth go through. They go through the discussion groups, then they learn how to make beats from the ground up, how to write rhymes, reauthor their narratives, collaborate on original hip-hop music, and then eventually, hopefully, perform it for their families and communities. So that's pretty much the program. But don't go anywhere quite yet. So we got one more exercise for you, and we're really excited about this one because this one kind of ties everything together, really connects all the pieces that we've been talking about throughout this entire presentation. You know that we talked a lot about rhythm and regulation. So we wanted to give you an experience of really what that really is on a visceral level. So you can really feel that somatosensory input, that tactile stimulation, and get a sense of that for yourself in a very real way. So again, pay attention to how you feel as we go through the last little climactic exercise.
All right, so these tables you guys are all seated at are actually drum machines.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but that's what they actually are. So what we're going to do is we're going to collectively make a beat together. So let's just start with just a simple count. Yeah. So, all right. So if you can all count with me. So just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. You guys are excellent at that.
That's a bar, by the way.
Yep. All right. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take your hand like this and just boom on the table. So boom. All right. So that's what would be called the kick or the bass drum. And then you can take your other hand and with your knuckles wrap like that. Or if that's a little uncomfortable, you can just open hand on the table, whichever feels more comfortable to you. So now what we're gonna do is the bass drum is gonna go on the 1, and then the other one on the 2, and then on bass drum on the 3, other one on the 4. Does that make sense? Does everybody follow so far? All right, so let's go ahead and try that. We'll try it, start off a little slow here. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good. All right, so now we're gonna take the 3 and add an extra kick drum in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. All right, just keep that going.
Yeah. I'm grateful for all the people in the audience. I'm grateful for my consciousness. I'm grateful for the thoughtfulness. I'm grateful that hip-hop taught me this. I'm grateful that when I'm feeling down, I can use sound to turn my frown upside down and feel the opposite. I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for my bottom lip. I'm grateful for the way the water drips. I'm grateful for the way the vibrations are bottomless and they got no ceiling. I'm grateful for the healing. I'm grateful for the way I'm revealing and the way the layers are peeling back. I'm grateful for the way the snare claps. Yeah, I'm grateful. Makes me aware I don't get stuck in bear traps. I'm grateful I'll be busting these rare facts. I'm grateful my name's Max. I'm grateful I'm laid back, chilling on a haystack. Grateful for that, so wave back. Yeah, yo, I'm grateful for all of you here in the room. I'm grateful for the beat and the way I hear it go boom. I'm grateful for the moon. I'm grateful I came out my mother's womb. I'm grateful I'm not in a tomb. I'm grateful I can always make some room to grow. I'm grateful for the flow. I'm grateful for the rhythm. I'm grateful for my wisdom and also my intuition. It helps me listen within so I can give them all I got. This is off the top. I do this an awful lot. I'm grateful for the falafel spot. Yo, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on stage or a carpet. I'm an artist. Yo, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on stage. Like I said, that's the target. I'm grateful that I could just release what I said through a phrase. I'm even grateful for the days that I feel like I'm locked in a cage. I'm grateful even when I got to get out of the maze. I'm grateful I could release all of my rage onto a page. I'm grateful that I know that a feeling is just a phase. It's fleeting. I'm grateful I can reach in to teach them and feed them some mental fruit while I'm spitting truth at the Hanna Institute. Yeah, we're getting loot. Yeah, I'm grateful for that too. I'm grateful I'm spitting these facts true. Yeah, like I said, to teach them. I'm grateful they don't need to pretend. No matter what is ending, you can always begin. I'm grateful that really helps me grin. I'm grateful for my smile. Grateful for my style and my inner child. Yeah, and my inner child.
Keep it going. All right. Keep that beat going, everybody. Come on. Keep that going. So now, when I told you to keep those papers close by, now you have a chance to share what you wrote, if you want, over this beat on this microphone. It probably feels a little uncomfortable. I get that. So what we want you to do is just push a little past that comfort zone. That's the same thing we tell the youth we work with. There is so much richness and beauty on the other side of that comfort zone. And you don't have to rap it. If it doesn't rhyme, it's fine. All you need to do is just read what you wrote over this rhythm that we are all here collectively creating together over this microphone. It is incredibly empowering, I promise you. So if anybody wants to do that, just shoot a hand up. Nick's going to bring a mic over to you.
I promise you will not regret it. You might regret it if you don't do it, though. Oh, we got one. Word. It's a really powerful experience.
All right. Here goes, y'all. Around within, a spiral spin creates a force, propel, begin. We invent the line we use then to define boundaries. Sound climbs these, reestablishing connection, transcending complexion, embracing complexity, derives integrity from unity.
Woo!
Drop.
Mic drop. All right, who's next? Who's next? We know we got at least a couple more in here. Don't be shy. All right, she over there, left hand.
Coming from foster homes, I didn't have a home, so when I found my place, I really had to go. I learned how to love myself learn how to love myself when no one else would, and now that I am, I want to give back to the people that would support me and love me.
I think we got at least one more. Oh, we got right here.
Yeah. Check out my trajectory, a resurrection story, converted pain to glory from those that came before me. A perfect illustration to find some peace and patience and for some new relations. Complete the whole equation. Realize through my eyes, let them cry for a bit. As they dry within time, I'ma fly, I'ma win. Yeah.
Bars.
Many
Fire.
bars.
I think we got like two more. We got two more in here. 3 more. All right, she got it. It's infectious. Let yourself get pulled in.
Flowing dress, open arms, I accept you as you are. Life is good. Love runs through it. Hold my hand. Let's go through it. Through the beautiful light-filled forest, we are one together. We shine with an open heart that streams out into the world. We bring that to all around us. Breathe life force and love. Spread it out. Let the butterfly land on your hand. See that you are one. Pick up the obsidian rock. Look from where it's come. Our beautiful earth, our beautiful souls that are within everything. They stay behind to remind us. Yo!
Woo, 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 woo. All right, one more. We got one more in the room. I know we do. Uno más, por favor. Oh!
I don't know my story. I don't know anything like Dory. I remember this beat.
No, you're doing good, man. You got it. You got this.
I don't know my story. I don't remember anything like Dory. I'm just. I've heard this beat before. It's fire, just like a lighter. I like the drums with a beat like you couldn't be a bum. In class I act dumb, but I am smart. I just like doing my work class like a dart. Right now, I don't feel nothing in my heart. It's empty. I need to feel it. I'ma hop on this beat and I'ma kill it. I'ma drill right through this. You know I got bars. Don't act so clueless.
Bars, son. Man, that was amazing. Man,
And that's why we do this.
We got a genius over there. I don't know if you guys really heard. There was some punchlines in there. That was dope, man. That was dope.
Yeah. Thank you all for participating in every way that you did.
Yes.
That was beautiful. Appreciate you all. Next slide, please.
All right, so I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but when I was wrapping up here, I was freestyling. That was like off the top of my mind. I don't know if you guys know what freestyle is, but for those of you who don't, freestyling is basically improvisational, spontaneous, unpremeditated rhyming off the top of your head. And we actually do that a lot with the youth in our programs at various different parts of the program. And I don't know if you specifically noticed, because, well, first of all, I want to say freestyling is actually kind of like a mindfulness exercise, because in order to do it, you really have to be present in the moment. You can't really be all up in your head, you know? So we really kind of use that as a mindfulness exercise. And I don't know if you specifically noticed, but I was freestyling about what I was grateful for. And that's actually something that we do. We call it a gratitude round. And we do that at certain points in the program with the youth in our programs. And we have them rap and freestyle about what they're grateful for. And if they don't feel comfortable freestyling about it, then they can at least just say a couple things into the mic that they're grateful for. And that's still a really, really powerful experience. And gratitude in a lot of ways, it's kind of like the ground of this work for us, you know. Kind of is it just peppered in through all of it, and we try to hold it as something that's kind of sacred. And, you know, gratitude is a really powerful thing. There's a lot of studies that have been shown it can reduce your stress level, improve your mental and physical health on very, very deep levels. And something that I always think is really amazing is that if you really, really feel gratitude through your whole being and you sit in that space, no negative emotion can really coexist in that space. You can't feel like depressed or angry or worried and truly grateful at the same time. So with that being said, to kind of close this out, we're going to have Jonah lead us through a short little gratitude meditation. So without further ado, take it away.
All right, so I just want to invite everyone to, again, just get comfortable. Recommend putting your feet flat on the floor if at all possible. Just let yourself get settled in. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If not, that's also fine. And just let your awareness really sink into your body. Really let yourself feel what the bottoms of your feet feel like against the floor. And your sit bones against the chair. And noticing those points of connection of your back against the back of the chair. And just sit with those for a second. See what that feels like. And then allow your awareness to slowly shift to your breath. And just noticing the sensations of it filling you up. And then exhaling. And just noticing how that process takes place all on its own. That breath is there for you to carry you through. It's nothing you really need to do. It takes care of itself and you. And just noticing some gratitude you might have for that process. And now in your field of awareness, in your mind's eye, I want to invite whatever you feel most grateful for up into that field. And let yourself just picture whatever or whomever that is. And if it's more than one or more than two or more than three or however many, that's all fine. Just letting those things come to the forefront of your awareness. And as you notice these things, pay attention to the sensations that go along with that. Pay attention to what's happening in your body and in your heart as you sit in this gratitude. And now we're just going to take a few seconds to just kind of saturate in that. And then as you're ready, you can slowly let your awareness come back into the room.
Next slide, please. So that basically wraps up our presentation today. Please visit our website, rhythmicmind.net. There's a lot of really cool stuff on there. We have a hip-hop therapy blog on there that's pretty cool. Some interviews, all kinds of really cool stuff, actually. A bunch of the songs from the kids. And yeah, a bunch of cool things. Also, please sign up for our newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter on there. You can do that by going to the home page and scrolling down just a little bit. Super easy. And we put out tons of value in these newsletters every month that are always highlighting the intersection between hip-hop and wellness and well-being and mental health in a lot of really cool, interesting ways, whether that's like unpacking the therapeutic kind of benefits of a song or a music video or an organization doing similar work or an article about freestyling and the neuroscience behind that. There's a lot of different cool stuff. And also, you know, keeps you updated on our developments as an organization, our events that we're putting on, things like that. So definitely subscribe to the newsletter. You will not be sorry if you do that. And then also, please follow us on social media at Rhythmic Mind 1. So what I'm going to ask right now is for everybody to take out their phones. Right now, pull out your phones. And if you have Instagram, if you don't, then get it. No, I'm just playing. If you have Instagram, go to it right now and type in Rhythmic Mind 1. So that's RHYTHMICMIND. Rhythmic is a hard word to spell a little bit. RHY. Yeah, I know. I had it down. Anyways, RHYTHMICMIND 1. And give us a follow right now. And again, you'll be happy you did because that page is really cool too. We put out a lot of really cool content, kind of innovative, highlighting all these different connections in cool, interesting ways, and sometimes some really cool freestyles and other things like that. So you'll be happy you followed us as well. And on Facebook as well, same tag, Rhythmic Mind 1. Follow us on Facebook as well. And if you look around you, you'll see that there are these QR codes on the walls, and those go directly to the donate page on our website for our annual fundraiser. So if you could please, whatever you can do, great or small, it makes a huge, huge difference in our ability to do this work and impact more youth. So if you could, scan those, as well as we can go ahead and do one more slide. Right there. So if
The big one.
Feeling too lazy to get up and go to the wall.
we got you. We
right
got
there.
you.
Yeah.
No, but for real, donations really are a huge part of how we're able to do this work. And as Max said, any bit from the smallest to the largest just goes miles in helping us continue to provide these services. And we are a 501c3, so any donation is tax deductible and tremendously appreciated.
Get those tax write-offs. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
other than that, I think we have a little bit of time still. Yeah, we good on?
Yeah, so
cool.
we
y'all trying to go anywhere right now?
We did want a little Q&A if you guys are still down to hang out for a couple minutes. If you have, this is the time for a little Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, we'd love to answer them. Does anybody have any burning questions?
When you guys are doing writing workshops with the young folks, what are the parameters in which you provide? What are the boundaries that you give them in order for them to create within? As far as, do you put any parameters on language, on content, on that kind of?
That's a really good question. I think the starting point, at least where I would jump off to respond to that from, was that we really do try to limit censorship and things like that as much as possible because we want it to truly be their authentic voice. We're not trying to put them in the box that then, well, look what we did. Like, we really want it to be about them and their process and just not being judgmental. It's a huge part of it. A lot of these kids deal with so much judgment. And yeah, there are a need sometimes for some boundaries around that. A lot of those boundaries, I think, get set up organically through the process by the time they're at that lyric writing phase and they've gone through that visualization and they have an understanding about what is the direction of this song. And so as long as it's kind of moving, if that fits, if you're using some language that maybe we wouldn't use, but it's still fitting within what that vision is for you, then that's what's going to happen. You know, there have been times where, and maybe I'll let Max unpack a little bit more about this, but like there's been multiple versions of a song. So there's the version they made, and then there's like the radio edit. But
yeah. I mean, for us, it is really important that we do keep things raw and authentic. You know, hip hop is not sugar-coated. And so it's important for us that like the youth feel like they can really express themselves the way that they want to. Now, it's always in the service of something that's about everything we've talked about, right? Like reauthoring their narratives in a positive light, and like going through our program, they're not going to come out of it. I mean, we would if the song was veering in a direction that's like blatantly negative or disrespectful, then yeah, we would draw a line there for sure. So there are certain things we don't like condone, but a lot of times, you know, it starts off with, you know, the kids might bring in a song, and you know, it's really important for us to validate that song choice and to not like shut them down or shame them for what they like. You know, that's why we played that Nipsey Hussle song, because it's not exactly what we could have played you something like a lot more less triggering or threatening or you know, less street oriented, but we wanted to give you a real feel of like something we would actually play for these kids, because that's what they're going to respond to, you know. I mean, some of them will be down with some classic 90s hip hop as well, which is like what we love, you know, but it's not about what we love. It's about meeting them where they're at. And like ultimately we got to validate, and without condoning, validate, right? And then from there, you know, we also have guidelines we set up like in the beginning of the group. It's not about what they're writing, but everything that we're doing kind of creates a container, and it would almost be unnatural for them to write stuff that isn't aligned with all of that, you know? But we like to give them a lot of freedom around how they express that. Like Jonah said, it's not a directive process as much as like a collaborative kind of like what does that mean to you, and how do you want to articulate that in your own artistic way, you know?
When it comes to the lyric writing, something we often come across is problems with literacy. Are there ways that you deal with that? I mean, a lot of our kids, they don't want to write because they're just like, this is not my thing. So do you have ways to break down those barriers of what they think they cannot do?
Great question. Yeah. I would say that we kind of, it's this balance, right? We're trying to push these kids a little out of their comfort zone while also not pushing them too far out of it, right? Because that's like the whole point. Like freestyling, for instance, when they start to try to do something like that, it can actually activate the stress response. It can actually be something that causes anxiety. But if you do it just in a certain little dose, and then you're kind of titrating that, and it's kind of trauma-informed, and you're paying attention to how regulated they are, what's actually happening is they're building a stress tolerance in that process. They're expanding their ability to tolerate that stress and moving more and more out of their comfort zone. They really don't have the ability to read or write. That could definitely be a barrier, but I also feel like maybe they might be more capable than they think they are. So we would try to create a container and an environment where they hopefully would feel like they could maybe at least just try, and you know, and we would push them and encourage them to try just enough while respecting their boundaries, and to see what they are capable of. And obviously there are certain things that we wouldn't be able to overcome if it was like they really can't read or write. But we've never run into that so far. And our target demographic for our age groups is largely adolescents and transitional age youth. So usually no, and this is kind of on the lower, like 13 would be kind of the youngest that we're usually trying to work with. It's usually, you know, high school age and transitional age youth.
And this wasn't in the group context, but I've worked with some youth who did have some challenges around that. It's not something that we've ever built into the Rhythmic Mind curriculum, and we haven't really encountered that. But I definitely second everything. Woo! Mic down.
Man down.
But in some of the work I've done individually, I actually did similar things, but then, so I was kind of doing the writing. So they're still able to speak about what they want and rap what they want, and then I'm transcribing it in a sense. So that might be another approach if we came to that.
Yeah, we never run into that, but that's probably how we'd approach that. One other last thing I would say about that too is that I feel like if it came down to a real barrier like that, it might also be something that maybe has to do with their trauma and the fact that they're not regulated. And that's really the whole point of this, is giving them the tools and a space to be regulated enough, because, you know, there's a lot of studies like Bruce Perry, who has an interview on our website. You know, he's worked with nonverbal clients before where people really thought they couldn't speak, and then he swung them on a tire for a while,
Engaged them rhythmically.
in a rhythm, in a rhythmic pattern, repetitively, and then, you know, kind of went through a certain process, and then the kid was doing math and reading and talking. So that's where, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's, you know, we can't promise, but like, I think in those situations, there may be some of that's at play as well. Of like, if we can get these kids who are traumatized and in their fight or flight response to move out of that a little bit, they might regain access to parts of their brain where people think they don't have certain skills, but then they're like, oh no, I just didn't have access to the part of my brain that had those resources, and now I do.
Well, and this dovetails into kind of a bigger conversation, which I don't know that we're going to fully get into, but around hip-hop education and the way that hip-hop can be used as a tool to really enhance education. And we're actually going to be working with Nick on developing some of that stuff fairly soon as well. So that could be another component of that. Yeah, please.
So, as a kid with a speech impediment, I had a speech impediment when I talked, but not when I sang. So I'd even say adding vocal tones to
Church.
it is gonna change the game, just because based on what the trauma does to your brain and how it registers. So even whether they're illiterate or not, like adding some vocal tone to it at least will help break that pattern and will resync the part of the brain that isn't necessarily language, but is symbology and actually will like light up the brain like dwelling. And so adding some sort of vocal tone versus just trying to stay at that same like awesome American drone, it might be a way to traverse that.
I'd like it.
That would be our theory, for sure. That would be, because there, like you said, there are definitely kids who like, it's like they engage in a certain form of expression and all of a sudden they are capable. But in other contexts, it seems like they're not. They just need to transfer that skill and learn how to regulate themselves in that context using hip hop.
Was there a question back in this corner? I thought I saw a hand kind of up. No, maybe. Boom.
How do you guys integrate some of the art? You mentioned art and breakdancing into your program, or
That is, you, my friend,
You're
might be
looking
from the
into-
future.
Yeah, for real.
We don't yet, but we absolutely have plans to have kind of parallel programs for every element of hip hop, for
Yep.
DJing, for breakdancing, for graffiti. Yeah, we feel like these central themes of rhythm and narrative run through all of those and could be applied to all of those depending on where somebody's kind of artistic leading might be. So yeah, that's definitely in the works.
Yeah, we don't have the skill in those areas to be able to lead those programs, and there's only 2 of us and a handful of staff artists. In the future, that's absolutely our vision, is to have programs for every element of hip hop, and applying kind of this overall curriculum and model in the same way with all those different elements. So really good question, and definitely you're looking into our future. Any other questions? Yes.
I was wondering, you know, thinking about how some of the youth, you know, have not been expressing their feelings and just have everything really deep inside there. What happens when too much comes out and it's too much for the 12-week program, and you realize, I mean, what do you do with that young person? What's the next step?
Referrals would be with the short and long of it. To the best of our ability, you're always in mental health capacity. You're always working within some kind of constraints in that regard. But yeah, we would absolutely. We are tied into communities of mental health where we work. As we go to other places, we would also be trying to connect to therapists who provide services at low to no cost, and do the best we could with making those referrals. But I would also go back to the rhythmic regulation piece, because we've really seen many times where a lot does come up, but it's again contained within that rhythmic regulation. And so it's really, they're able to very quickly, it's shocking sometimes how quickly these transformations happen, change their relationship to that trauma. So literally on a very deep visceral level, the impact of that trauma is, I'm not going to say negated, but it is minimized significantly. And so that's what that continued regulation is, what's allowing them to then open up about these things and to look at them and to actually be able to grapple with them and then kind of be like, all right, like, cool, that's over now.
Exactly, and that's a really core piece of the way we frame everything. Is like your struggle can turn. It's almost like your weakness can turn into your superpower, you know, because if you come from that and you overcome it, then you're capable of like anything, right? And like I said, you know, it's about how you choose to look at it, because if you look at your struggle as something that you know holds you back or defines you in a negative way, then that's going to be your story. But if you look at it as something that actually gives you wisdom and strength and insight and the ability to almost like an advantage in some way, obviously, you know, there's limits to that because there's some seriously debilitating things, you know, but overall, you know, that can completely change your relationship to that. And we've seen it happen over and over. So.
And that's literally kind of at the core of how hip hop even came into being. It was people
100%.
extremely under resourced, and they took those lack of resources and flipped them and made stuff that is now $1 billion industry.
Yeah, it was born as an art form that was born out of oppression, which is a little different than other art forms. Not every art form is born out of oppression like that, you know.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean,
hey, thank you all so much for coming out.
yeah,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
so much.